AI Boggsy? Man, that's gonna be the Boggsy 24/7 that's sitting back, drinking margaritas, listening to Bob Marley on the beach, has no worries at all.
That would be me. That would be me.
This week on the podcast, our weekly sponsor by segment goes ballistic. Who knew a 2-minute ad read could turn into a 30-minute opus on the culinary delights and sometimes travails of road travel?
One Thanksgiving, I had to eat out of a vending machine. It's not a joke. I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but that's just what I had to do because there was no restaurants open where I was on Thanksgiving Day.
Barca's eyes would always light up when he was invited to the team room on the road.
But my main mission walking in was, again, don't disrupt anything, don't stand out, don't do anything to get kicked out, because once you get clearance into one of those areas, you're like, it's like the soup kitchen in Seinfeld. You're like, I got the access, don't do anything to F it up.
And I'm up to my ears about the industry celebrating burnout, and we wonder if there will ever be a change.
It almost would take a unified effort on a busy college football game day on Saturday in the middle of September where everybody just walks out, where everybody's just like, we're just not doing it today.
Episode 6, here we go. Andale!
This is the true story of two washed-up sports guys who chased the dream. Private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge. The burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back. But also, the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We are two former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is no longer credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
Sponsored by. Shout out to this week's sponsors and to the electric company, the water company, and the gas company for not coordinating their shutoffs.
Today's episode is sponsored by Miss the Bus, the official ride of get your work done, but also be downstairs 30 seconds after the buzzer. The game's over. The team lost. Coach is already on the bus, staring out the window, still dressed in full uniform. And you're still in the press box, packing the final numbers in stat crew and praying for Wi-Fi. Miss the bus because you're not on Eastern Time, Central Time, or Mountain Time. You're on Coach Time. And Coach Time leaves early, especially when you lose.
We're also brought to you by Touched by a Coach. From the sickos who brought you Touched by a Supervisor comes an even more powerful force. The coach who thinks every visual should look like a sellout, even though you rank dead last in attendance. Drone shots? The regatta water looks like Galveston. Can we make it look cleaner? Game day photos? Can we change the opposing fans to our colors? Snow on the field? Recruits don't need to know it feels like 7 degrees all season. Touched by a Coach. They're living in a fantasy world, and you're just a hostage, quietly searching for an escape route.
Boggsy, have you ever missed the bus and been left behind?
No, I have not. I've been told a bunch of times, get your ass on the bus because we're about to leave. But I've not been left. I know have you been left, right?
I'm sure I have, but this was back in the days too, before where, we didn't have Uber at times to where you could just take one and go back to the hotel or get a lift to the airport. So Gosh, I don't know if I have. I was always pretty good about it. I could always just pick up and leave when I needed to, but there were some times where I sweated out.
I always try to get on the bus. There's a lot of times I was the last one on the bus and they were waiting on me. But I never got left, thankfully. One of the members of our party would always say, hey, if they left me, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to go to the most expensive hotel in town. I'm going to book the most expensive suite they have.
First
I'm going
class,
to stay that night, and then I'm going to get the most expensive flight home in the morning. So, yeah, they can go leave me. That's great.
I'll be having the continental breakfast.
That's right.
There's nothing like when you are the last one getting on the bus, and it's almost like the walk of shame, and you're going up, especially if it's a loss. And the first thing, at least, that I always thought was, don't make eye contact with coach. Don't make eye contact with coach. Don't make eye contact. Just find your seat. Usually there was no single aisle at that point. So you're just like, I need somebody to move over for me. And so without making a big scene.
The difference for you, though, is you could do that. I had to hand stats to my coaches because they wanted to see them. So, like, I'm making eye contact with them, after a loss. Like, all right, here's because, they're doing work on the way home or work on the bus or on the plane or whatever. You just try to be as indiscreet as possible. It's a tough road there.
I've been around sometimes with coaches where they'll get the stats and you just win it up in the box just to get them. Or if you're on the road, of course, I think the other crews usually give them to you, printing them out and giving them to you guys. And then you give them to a coach and the first thing they do is crumple it up and just throw it down on the ground.
Or the best is when they get off the bus first because they're the first one's off, and then you walk by and there's the box score laying on the seat that you had to work pretty hard to get, and they just left it there. They didn't want to see it anymore. So
usually you just have it dusted to see if the actual fingerprints are actually on it or not.
Yeah,
probably not. All for nothing.
Yes, it didn't happen a ton, but there are some times where just they left everything behind. So.
You didn't have one coach just crumple it up right in front of you and then just throw it off to the side.
I never did.
Yeah.
Never did.
I've witnessed some of that. What about etiquette when you're traveling with a team? Because I didn't travel every time, but I always knew, usually got the rundown of like, hey, those first 3 or 4 rows, those are the coaches.
Oh, yeah.
And the players, especially for basketball, you're dealing with guys that are 6 to 7 feet tall, and they're like, they always sit one to a row, so don't double up on a player. And so you're trying to find that weird in-between spot, because if you get there early and you don't travel regularly, you're like, is this the right area for me to get into? You just don't know.
Yeah, you pretty much want to go probably starting at about there's a little between the 6th row and like the 12th row. The player on a bus, normally the players sit in the back and the coaches sit in the front. The head coach normally sits in the front seat. So like the support staff's kind of that little middle area. Same thing on a plane, unless if you're on a plane where there's first class seating, and a lot of times the coaches will let the players sit in first class, and then they would be like the first row after that. And then you would just kind of fill in after the coaches. But yeah, I think the general etiquette from all the bus rides I've been on, it's kind of like that little middle part of the bus is kind of where we settle in.
I was kind of like Principal Rooney getting on the bus at the end of Ferris Bueller. Yeah. And everyone's just staring at you. I look like I've been through hell and wars, setting up post-game conference video and trying to pack everything down and sweating, and my hair's everywhere. And I get towards the back and then someone's just throwing gummy bears at me that have been sitting in somebody's pocket all day. But all right, what about the food? The food was always my favorite part. I mean, basketball, I would walk on and it wasn't like, hey, everybody, here's some slices of pizza. It's like, here's an entire pizza pie from Mellow Mustard or wherever.
The best.
And you would to talk about that, because you would just like hoard this food for several days and you would slowly bring it out in the following days in the office.
Yeah, I mean, the one time that I really remember is we played DePaul in Chicago, and I'd never had deep dish Chicago pizza before, and we each...
Don't call it lasagna.
everybody had their own large deep dish pizza. And I didn't touch it on the way home. I'm working, wasn't hungry, whatever. But then I got home and opened it up. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 3 days to eat all this. And my wife and I ate on it for 3 days, 4 days. And it was a great treat. But yeah, I mean, it's they try to break it up on the road, and it was a lot of chicken fingers and fries. I will tell another story. When I first got in the business, all we did was eat pizza after games. All we did, pizza at home, pizza on the road, pizza here, pizza there. And honestly, from about March to May, I couldn't eat red sauce of any kind. I couldn't eat lasagna. I couldn't eat spaghetti. Couldn't eat pizza. I just had so much red sauce for 5 months that I couldn't eat it anymore. It is what it is. You eat what's in front of you, and it was pizza. So you crush a pizza.
You guys were living large, man. I remember some of the basketball days, and I wasn't invited to these parties, but when you guys would be hitting the road from the team facility, getting ready to take the bus to the airport, to go to like Columbia, South Carolina, or middle of nowhere, Gainesville, Florida, and I seem to remember seeing some Ruth's Chris bags.
Oh yeah,
some
man.
other high, fancy, swanky
Oh.
deals that you guys got to dine on. Did you get to partake in that too?
Yeah, I went to Ruth's Chris a couple times. We would go there before we'd head to the plane, or it started getting to the point we just started having everything catered in. So before we got on the plane would just be this huge spread. These guys ate so much, and they should, because they're burning, I mean, how many thousands of calories are they burning, and they need to eat. And I mean, steaks and salmon and chicken and pasta. And so then you would get to your destination at about 9 or 10, and there would be a snack. And that would be like any cold cut, any sandwich, any cookie, any ice cream, any fruit, anything you could ever imagine was at this thing. And these guys just constantly ate all the time. And so I got to partake in some of that stuff. It was incredible. I mean,
if I was on the road with you guys, and you would be, hey Barca, I got you into the team meal today.
Yeah.
But, oh, great. I don't have to walk across 4 lanes of traffic to get to the Chipotle. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I'm starting to feel like I'm part of the team. This would be like postseason traveling.
Yeah.
And I'd walk in. It was always wait till all the players and coaches eat. Make sure there's enough food. Let them eat. They're the number one priority. Totally makes sense. Everybody was nice and courteous, but my main mission walking in was, again, don't disrupt anything. Don't stand out. Don't do anything to get kicked out, because once you get clearance into one of those areas, you're like, it's like the soup kitchen in Seinfeld. You're like, I got the access. Don't do anything to F it up. And
gold,
so
man.
I would just grab my meal, go over the table. If other people, players or whoever would say something, I would obviously have a combo back. But other than that, I was just always like, don't disrupt the system. Don't stand out. Don't do any of those things. And I would eat for like, at that point, like there'd be leftover food because all the players would be done finishing up. And my gosh, I would eat for like incredible. A party of four.
Yeah. I would always have like certain foods that I will always rank from place to place. Like one of the main foods was French toast. Like, how good is the French toast? I would know like what hotels on the road had good French toast, especially in our league. Like I knew where the good French toast was. I would always kind of base the hotel stay on how good the French toast was. And I can tell you where I had my best French toast ever. I mean, my mom makes incredible French toast. I mean, it tastes like donuts. But like as far as like hotel French toast, it's at, couldn't even tell you the hotel, but it was outside of San Francisco somewhere. We had played St. Mary's and we were about to fly to Maui. And the next morning we had this huge breakfast spread, always Maui. And French toast was just the best, just the stuff you dream about. And it's by far the best hotel French toast I've ever had to this day. Probably will be for the rest of my life. I need to do more research on what it was, but it was so good. But again, like, I'm sure there's people out there who travel that would kind of base their hotel preference and like how good the food was. You know, because a lot of times you just had the hotel make the food for you because you don't want to go out for, you don't want to you want the guys to kind of be relaxed and not have to go anywhere. So, but yeah, man, French toast was big.
The runny eggs. The eggs always look, there's no way in a catering thing to ever make eggs look good. You know, they always feel like they're one big clump. And I learned
as long as they weren't green, Bray. As long as they weren't green.
I know.
We would eat them.
I know. There's just bad situations on the road when you're working in sports. There's like, you don't want to do anything to disrupt the system. The eggs were one of them. Just like, I'm staying away from the eggs.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like you're more of a French toast guy than a pancake guy.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. But it was just, you never had pancakes on the breakfast bar. Ever. Never.
Yeah.
It was always French toast. It was, sometimes they had the sticks. Sometimes they had the regular loaves. I preferred the loaves in the, you know, like brioche or sourdough or whatever they used to make it with. I prefer that. Some people like sticks, but I don't know why it was. It's just because we had it at every meal. It's like part of the spread, like French toast. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a big French toast guy on the road. I can't say that I like pancakes worse than French toast. I like them both.
I always thought, surprisingly enough, that the dessert bar, when they were catering at the hotels, I always thought that those were kind of mid. Those were never
really
to the level. Yeah, never to the level of the actual meal where you get the courses of, you know, a meat and a veggie and whatever, a couple sides. Because usually you're just getting, well, you may have had some crazy stuff, but usually when I'm there, it's like, okay, it's the triangle cut brownies and, you know, a couple of chocolate chip cookies that are so-so. And don't get me wrong, I partaked in all of those things multiple times, but it was never really anything like that I felt was like really delicious that I would crave. But now you may have been there at times where they had actual like make your own sundae bar or things like that. I'm not sure.
All the time. Man, we had cheesecakes and brownies and cookies and ice cream. One particular place, I'll say Texas A&M, where Bluebell is right up the road. We'd had 2 big things of Bluebell ice cream. And you didn't know what flavor. It was vanilla and some other flavor. I don't remember what it was. But it was just heaven, you know? Like, if you like ice cream, and Bluebell's near the top. And it changes by coach, though, really. You know, like, I had one coach, he didn't want the kids eating dessert. He didn't want them drinking sodas or any of that stuff. And then I've had other coaches where they just brought the whole kit and caboodle, man. They had the whole smorgasbord of desserts, and it was.
Is there correlation to how the team performed?
One of the teams that had desserts in my previous life did better. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean,
it's kind of like the stat they always give in sports, where if a team makes a lot of if there's a lot of touching involved, like a lot of high fives and things throughout the game, you know, physical uplifting touch, you can tell that the team chemistry is better, which leads to more winning.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe a great unknown is, did they have desserts or not in the catering room? You know, maybe that's a hidden secret.
Yeah, I mean, I had some
that
incredible meals.
I think, you know, obviously the best of all, which I would travel to regularly on the road, was football. And maybe it was less of the catered meal. It was just the mass quantities of food. So when we're leaving on a Friday from the airplane hangar and taking our private jet that probably was gifted to us from like Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Okay, maybe not that.
Yeah.
We would get a white paper bag of food when we're getting on the bus. I mean, getting on the plane from the hangar. And it would have like, I'm not kidding. It would have like a triple cheeseburger and a chicken sandwich and a Crustable and a Snickers bar and chips. And it would have basically, instead of it just being like hey, you get option A, B, or C. Let's not even mess with it. Let's just give everybody
just
the
give it
full
to
bag of stuff. They can figure out what they want to eat and what they don't. There might be some
Yeah.
peanuts with M&Ms. And then you get on the flight, and I felt like there was a second thing of food, like, hey, Chick-fil-A sandwiches or something that would go by. And then towards the end, and I'm not making this up, they'd be like, is the ice cream lady coming around?
Yes.
And they'd bring
They'd
those
have the
Haagen-Dazs.
Snicker bars, the Haagen-Dazs.
Snicker bars, Haagen-Dazs bars.
Yeah.
All of them. And typically for football, we had to dress up with a button-up shirt and a coat. I think a lot of the times, or we tried to look nice. And my whole time eating that chocolate bar on the plane, I was just like, please don't get the chocolate.
I know.
Chocolate all over my shirt.
The only shirt I brought.
Over my coat.
Yeah, I got to get it to the game tomorrow.
You're like, I'm going to probably have to
Please.
wear this tomorrow. I don't want to bring two completely different outfits to the game, because you still have your daytime outfits or your go out at nighttime outfit for like Friday night when you go eat dinner. And I just remember just being like, this is a crazy amount of food. And I would just take it all back to the hotel and I would just spread it out over the desk and just be like, okay, what snack I'm going to have tonight? If I was getting per diem, I'd be like, well, I don't really need breakfast or lunch, even though we were only probably getting like $40 a per diem for the day.
Right.
And I'd be like, I think I can skip this meal. I still got a banana left over and maybe an apple. And, but it was a crazy amount of food. But when you think about it, it was like football. You got some of these guys that are 330 pounds.
Yeah.
And their whole goal and mission is just to gain weight and stay at that weight. And so, you know, me at the time, I'm like, well, I am reaping the benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you how. There was one instance where later on in my tenure, you used to be able to get protein shakes whenever you wanted. The Gatorade, you go to the cooler and pull out a protein shake. And there's a lot of calories in those things. You know, the guys need them. You know,
it's a full
400.
meal.
Yeah, they're like 400, 500 calories a pop probably. And so we'd have some managers who would decide, hey, you know, I'll just have one of these protein bars or protein drinks. And then the next thing you know, they put on 20 pounds. I mean, I've seen it in like a year. They just put on so much weight because they're just eating like the players are eating. And I'm sure that happens to staffers too, you know, like you're eating like you're on a cruise ship. That's what I always tell people. Like you are eating like you're on a cruise ship. As much as you possibly could eat, you got to eat. And it's any kind of food. It's like steaks and all kinds of desserts, and I mean, just heavy food that these guys need.
Smoothie King. It's like, we've got all these Smoothie
Kings.
They're just like, yes, please.
Yeah, do you want a smoothie? Yeah, I'll take that, but that's like 600 calories. But you know, these dudes need it. You know, I don't need it, but I would drink it anyway. Food on the road is,
you know, even in football
great.
too. Football, they would have the table set up in the sort of in one of the exit ways to the bus, and you pick it up after the game, and it would be like, maybe it'd be like Chick-fil-A, and it would be like, you have two Chick-fil-A sandwiches, nuggets, brownie, fries, maybe fruit cup, whatever in there. But then again, a lot of times when you got on the plane or on the bus, you would get something additional. And I was like,
be more.
Christmas came early. And even if I wasn't hungry, and a lot of times I wasn't, I didn't need to eat more food, but I felt like
it was there.
I may never eat food like this again. You know, I was probably living off like 29 cent McDonald's cheeseburgers on Tuesdays. Right. You know, when you start throwing in like Chick-fil-A and Mellow Mushroom Pizza and then all of these catered events, I'm like, man, I can't pass that up.
Yeah.
So, you know,
it was great. It's
the life.
Yeah, it's the life, you know, it really is the life. And it was fun. You got to eat we went to some really cool restaurants that I'll probably never, ever go to that, you know, or, you know, Maui again, like you go to Luau's, and my all-time favorite place to eat was in Puerto Rico. I had never been to Puerto Rico, and we played in a basketball tournament down there, and ESPN put on this huge spread the night before, just with all kinds of Puerto Rican food. By the way, it's just, Barca, have you had Puerto Rican food? It's just buttery and rice and shrimp and
I don't think I have, but
Oh gosh,
I'm
dude,
down.
you need to do it. It's so good. And so pork is big down there, and so I remember we plantains. I love plantains, the
love
sweet
plantains.
ones. The sweet plantains are good. So you go into this, into this banquet, and this guy there was a pig on a spitter, no doubt, no joke. It was on a spitter, and he had plastic gloves on. He goes, "Hey, do you want some pork?" I was like, "Yeah." He would reach into the pig, go in there, grab pork, and put it on your plate, and you get some plantains and go sit down or whatever. And yeah, I remember that because the food was just so good. And we would go to like late night places and have rice and shrimp. And I mean, I'm sorry if I'm not getting all the Puerto Rican food down, but I don't have it very often. But I had it down there, and it was like, dude, this stuff is so good. So yeah, I mean, being on the road, the food part, you're gone a lot. But if you're in certain sectors of the college athletic experience, you get those type of meals. And it's
The other meal that always seemed to happen in the postseason, and sometimes I get the invite, sometimes I wouldn't. No harm, no foul. It's not your fault, Boggsy. I don't hold it against you. I know you have an in with the team. You could get me on the list.
yeah.
But typically, if I remember correctly, the team would always go out for some sort of organized dinner if it was a postseason road trip for March Madness or whatever. And maybe, say if they're playing on Friday, maybe it's on Wednesday night or something. It's usually at a really fine dining establishment, like the best steakhouse or whatever it is in town, to have like almost like a real family meal. Everybody on the team dresses up. It's kind of a fun thing. You load up the buses, take them over, and have a nice meal. That was the case with basketball too, right?
Yeah, we didn't do it as much. We did do it.
Women's basketball, baseball, maybe. I can't remember men's basketball.
We didn't do it as much. We had a couple of meals where it was like that. At the SEC tournament, yes, when we were in New Orleans, we would have a really nice meal. We had one or two like nice meals at some really nice restaurants, and it depends. Like sometimes, like one place, you may have been on the road with us. We were in California, and we had some of our former pro guys show up, and we went to Fleming's and had.
Was that San Jose or was that Sacramento?
That was when we were in the NIT, when we went to play St. Mary's.
St. Mary's? I was not on the St. Mary's.
You
trip.
on that trip?
No,
that was the trip
in San Jose.
Yeah, we had some pros come back in and eat with us, and it was great. So that didn't happen as much, but when it happened, it was top notch, man. It was some of the food that we've got. Well, you get to eat at that level is pretty legit.
And now probably all of those funds are going to NIL, I would assume. So you're probably not getting these meals anymore, right?
I don't know, man. It's a good question. I'm sure they still do it. Again,
sure.
like certain coaches are like really big on that experience, and some coaches aren't. Some coaches just want to hunker down in their hotel and, be ready for the game the next day. Some want to go have dinner out at a nice restaurant, or
it's some story one time where they were going to try to get one of the teams to cut back from having Ruth's Chris before going on the road, or did it never get to that point to where that got?
We stopped doing it.
verbalized?
We stopped doing it, but I don't know if someone told them to do it or not. What we did, we just catered in. Probably cost just as much or not more to have it catered in. Barca, you've seen some of those spreads that we would have catered in before trips. You could eat, like we played on Friday or played on Saturday, we flew out Friday night. You wouldn't need to eat the rest of the weekend.
If I was eating late afternoon, getting on the bus and then having the meal that night, I could probably go until like 2 or 3 o'clock or till dinner the next night, pocket my per diem if I was getting per diem for that morning meal, which was usually $10, and that lunch meal, which I think was $10 or $15 back at times, which
it was 10,
you can't
15.
even think about what per diem would have to be today. You sit there, I think we were talking about this earlier today. If you want to go and just get a burrito and a drink, you're probably paying like $20.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how they do it today, and Barca, there's also been coaches where like they don't want me eating with the team. I've had a coach that's like, you're just going to go eat what you can find. And most of the time that works out pretty good because you can go experiment and go. But sometimes when you are traveling over a holiday and there's nothing open, what are you doing? You know, like this is no joke. One Thanksgiving, I had to eat out of a vending machine. It's not a joke. I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but that's just what I had to do because there was no restaurants open where I was on Thanksgiving Day. And I should have said something, but I didn't. I was young.
It's a sad story.
It's a sad story, yeah. I mean,
this took a turn for the worse.
Yeah. But I don't mention the previous 3 nights before that. I was spending, eating some of the best food you possibly could eat.
There we go.
Like, it was what it was. Like, what are you going to do? But some coaches are different, Most of the people that I was around, they allowed you to eat with the team, which I'm glad they did. You got to bond with the players and managers and coaches and things like that. So,
yeah, when I got to the pro level, because usually on the college level, if we did get to eat from the team, I don't think we were. Maybe Comms was paying for it. I don't know if they were or not, or maybe that's coming out from a completely separate budget. But in the pros, it would be like if I was setting up like preseason travel with the ops people, the technical staff of the teams, it would always be like, hey, here's the rates of what a room costs for a night during camp. And so those costs would come out. Obviously, I think the flight costs were in there as well. And the meal costs, if they were catering, you want to talk about enormous per plate. I can't remember the exact number. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so, I'm managing a travel budget for the year and trying to figure out how many people I can get on the road back and forth. And I remember just looking at that and I'm just like, this is just,
Yeah.
But catering a meal, I mean, you think people at home that have ever catered, let's say, a wedding.
Yeah.
And you think about how
cheap.
much it costs per plate. It's not. Yeah. It's not. And
it's not cheap at all.
Not that we were spending $10,000 on that meal, but it adds up when you're like, man, we got preseason camp for 2 to 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, my gosh, I may be spending, I don't know the number. I'm just making up a number, $50,000 by the time I'm trying to get people fed and rooms and food. That number sounds pretty high, but
it's not cheap.
Anyway,
it's not cheap, especially in a hotel. I mean, they can charge you whatever they want. And so they do.
I'm up to my ears right now.
This episode wouldn't be complete without seeing Boggs' head explode like Mount Kilauea in Hawaii. Just a volcano oozing with lava, and it's not stopping anytime soon. Boggs, can't wait to hear it. He's up to his ears.
Okay, BB, I've had to narrow down my rant selections because there are a ton, but here's one that really used to get me, and still kinda does. I'm going to try and keep this short. First, story time. Early in my career, one of my colleagues was receiving an award at our profession's yearly convention in the summer, and I grudgingly packed up for a week at a logo-filled convention hall. Normally in the off-season, I wanted my toes in the sand and cherished the opportunity for the Atlantic Ocean waves to knock me sideways while body surfing and boogie boarding. We spent a few days at the convention, celebrated our colleague, had some drinks with people I knew from the road, and took in the sights and sounds. At one of the award ceremonies, they were honoring longtime communications professionals and their work in the business, and they would read their bios. Only full-time staff with a department of 30 sports, or this person persevered despite 80-hour work weeks, etc., etc. And while I was happy for the person being honored, I also began to have thoughts like, this is what we are celebrating as a profession? Working to burnout because athletic departments don't have money to pay people to work? Honoring people who have been clearly taken advantage of by the system and consequently had no lives but their jobs. I was truly shaken by that experience. Fast forward a few weeks and I fired off an email to the president of the organization and asked him those same questions I mentioned above. Why are we celebrating long hours and no lives outside of work? What are we doing? Is the intention to scare people away from the job? This was 20 years ago or more, and still to this day, if you visit the organization's website, they're recognizing writing awards and media guide awards and all of the stuff that really doesn't matter. People leaving the profession in droves? No big deal. We still have people who can write. Longtime professionals being paid far less than they're worth in the open market? Yes, please. All while the presidents and vice presidents of this organization make six figures and do half of the work. I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but it's the truth, and the profession should face up to that fact. So this is my suggestion to the people in charge. Why don't you change the arc of your organization? Reorganize your story to standing up for the people on campus who are the cogs in the machine, making everything hum. Don't let them take jobs for less than they're worth. Use your juice on campus to try and get better pay and benefits for these people. Don't allow administrations to fire people at will and replace them with younger and cheaper talent. Because all of us who've worked in the business knows this idea is always there. Yes, it's great to love your job, but don't let organizations take advantage of this love with low pay, ungodly hours, bad press box food, and the inability for people to have a life outside of the walls of the building. It's time to do better.
That's heavy, heavy, heavy stuff. And I'm glad you're speaking out and being bold about this. And I know other people in the industry have. And the fact that you emailed, someone in charge of the organization back in the day, I don't know if you ever got a response.
Never.
But
No response.
it's a step that a lot of people aren't willing to take. They'll fume about it internally or mention it to a coworker, but taking the actual step to say, hey, look, this isn't right. And again, I've kind of fueled that fire just because I'm a high achiever and never cared about the awards or the banquets and
Right.
had zero interest in any of that stuff. And
yeah, I didn't like
not
it
someone
either. I
that's
mean, for me to like commit to actually doing work in June, July, or whenever normally it was around 4th of July holiday. And I always told people, the last thing I want to be doing is talking about work in July. Like it's just an all consuming thing all throughout the year. And I still don't think they champion people. I still think that, not only do they not champion people, I just don't think that they are fighting hard enough. This is a kind of not a perilous time, but this is a time that's hard for that business. People are leaving in droves and, they're celebrating media guides and stuff like that. You just need to be better. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't know. It's just a frustrating thing to do, to see. They just ignore everything that's happening in the business. They just ignore it, I'll go hang out in the convention and talk about game notes, It bothers me. It's bothered me for 20 years. And I've spoken with people who are leaders of this organization about this. I've spoken to them about it. Like, what are you guys doing? And, they're great folks. I love them. But at the end of the day, it's like, we probably need to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I've got some stories about some of those awards, banquets and in college and even in pros. In college, I remember at one place, and it's pretty cool when, I was on a marketing team that was up for Marketing Team of the Year, a finalist at NACTA. And it was cool. And it would have been awesome if we had won. It's not something that I think I'm happy for the people that I worked with if those things come to fruition and we win the award or you're a finalist. But the preparation that it took, it was the requirements. It was just ridiculous. It's like every team. I think we each had our sections to write, and I think it ended up being like a 50 to 70 page PDF that was fully designed by the graphic designer. We had to write a recap on every single highlight of things that we did. And it's this competition through certain schools, but it became so extensive. And this was in the middle of a season when you have a ton of other stuff going on, and we're putting all our priorities and resources in for this award to obviously recognize the department and show the worth. And it looks good from top down to do it. But for me, I'm like, this isn't something we can turn in a week.
Right.
And the award's not that important to me, and I don't really care about it, honestly.
Yeah.
And I never have. And
me too.
It just, I'm not in it for that part of the work, and that's not patting myself on the back. And I think it's a great recognition, but even in pros, the league would have, so again, it becomes like the arms race, back in college of like, who can really define and show what they've done as a marketing group. And then it was like, okay, I'm spending full nights for like an entire week to try to hit this deadline. And I remember in the pros, MLS would have the same thing where they would do some sort of like their award stuff, and it either didn't get filtered down to the content team until a couple of days before, or the league was just late on telling everybody, which was a regularly occurring thing, honestly. And so, but then again, what happens is, this stuff goes, the league will send it and will go to the top of the line people in the building, and then they want to see us win awards for across the league for whether it's the ticket team, sales team, or comms team, or marketing, or digital, or whatever. It's like, it's a way for us internally to stand out, to show our value and our worth. But we're getting these submissions like sometimes less than a week before, so there's not much time to prep. And just on top of the regular schedule, I remember the last one I did, I think I finished at like 3 a.m. the day of the deadline.
Yeah.
And was just run into the ground. And again, I'm a little, I'm different than most. I don't care about these awards. I don't want to spend much time on the submissions.
Me either.
But I understand the greater value. And, you just finished through something like that. And then you see the voting process on how it happens is like everybody votes based on, we had to vote for other teams in the league. And you're like, this is sort of like a pony show. Like,
yeah, it is. The whole thing is.
Why can't people actually determine who the winners are rather than everybody in the league sitting there and just voting? It's probably like some of those other player awards that
we would have these academic awards. We'd have these academic all-region district things, and we're like emailing all of our friends, hey, if you vote for mine, I'll vote for yours. And it's just like,
yeah,
dude,
why?
I don't care.
It just taints the entire process. Like, let's just submit it, and then you know what, league? If you guys want to vote, great. If your board or committee that you've done, it's the same thing in which they do in NACTA. They don't open it up for everybody to vote on.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm just like, are we really doing the all-star fan poll? Like, this just makes me just not. I was like, people are going to go with the sexy things. Oh, I remember this big thing, and just from the outside of learning what that promotion or effort was, or marketing effort or whatever, but. They may not understand the nuts and bolts that went into it. It's just, it had this, sexy look on social that everybody remembered, but, and they've done a great job at promoting what that was on social. So everybody knew, but I don't know. There's a lot of great work that happens everywhere. I think it's great to recognize people. I'm not against any of those things. I think it's the time crunch and the ways that a lot of times they come across, and you're like, it's either the amount of effort that the organization makes us put into the submission, or the tardiness on when the league or company or whoever, organization sends it to us, like, man, we didn't really have enough time for that.
Yeah. I just wish they would, I don't want them to become a union or anything, but just admit the fact that there's all kinds of research being done now in that space, basically saying, hey, this is a problem right now. Turnover is this. Among these certain departments, it's this. Like big numbers. And I just don't know if it ever gets addressed. Maybe it does. I knew when I was at these conventions, I just stopped going because I didn't want to go anymore. And luckily, we weren't made to go. They didn't want to pay for us to go. That's what it all came down to. They didn't have the budget to get us there, which is fine.
They didn't have that line item in the budget for
the line item was not there in the budget. And
professional development, believe it or not.
I know, but I was perfectly okay with not going, and I don't want to be a fuddy-dud. And I love my coworkers that I work with during the year, but again, I'd rather have my toes in the sand somewhere in July and not really thinking about work. And it's just kind of contributes to this burnout. Like, guys, do something about the burnout. It's a problem. It is a problem, and they just don't do anything about it. And it's not my problem, but it used to get me really fired up, dude. Really, really fired up.
I'm sure now there are breakout sessions at those college ones. It was like,
oh yeah,
work-life balance, and how can we, wellness, and I'm sure some of that's being sprinkled in, and still.
Yeah. It's always been sprinkled in, but it's never been a priority of the leadership of the organization that, like, hey man, like, our profession is dwindling, and it's going to dwindle even more with, we're going to get into AI on future episodes, but it's going to dwindle even more when AI is doing half of the job that a communications professional is doing, and nothing's being said about it. They're making their 6 figures. They're working their 40. They're going home, and, they made it to that point in their career where they can do that, but It's not a good. I don't like it. I think it's bad. So I'm up
Are
to
you
my
saying
ears.
we're going to get cloned at some point and this show is going to get taken over by
Probably.
AI robots and we're going to have an AI Boggsy?
Ooh,
Because I'm all for that. If we're going to change the
that
show,
is something.
excuse me, waiter, yep, I'd like to order an AI Boggsy. Future episodes. Give me some ice cream too.
Yeah, dude, that would be quite incredible. You could just train an AI model, a large language model, over my madness and stupidity. That would be great.
You know what the difference between an AI model and you is going to be?
What?
You know, they used to have this saying like, what would you do? Or I guess it was the religious version of that as well.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about it. I'm starting to think like, what would AI do? Because AI is so patient in every situation.
Ooh,
And that's the one thing AI is always going to have over your body.
I will not be
We
patient.
mentioned the volcano exploding, Mount Kilauea, lava going everywhere, steam coming out of your ears, and
That's me.
the emotion and the passion.
Yeah.
AI Boggsy, man,
Nah.
that's gonna be the Boggsy 24/7. That's sitting back, drinking margaritas, listening to Bob Marley on the beach, has no worries.
That would
at
be
all.
me. That would be me.
That's him.
Yeah. I just, I don't know if the professional will ever change, but it really needs to, because they're losing a lot of really good people, a lot of really talented people that just can't do it anymore. And it's,
So how do we change it? Not us specifically, but how anyone in the business.
I mean, the
Obviously,
first thing comes to
podcasts
mind-
like this help.
I mean, I hate to get drastic like this, but it almost needs to be kind of unionized. It almost needs to be everybody's in a union and these things get negotiated. I hate to be that way, but it's like administrators have kind of made it become that, you know? You almost have to have it negotiated. And I don't know what that would look like, but that's just the initial thing for me. I mean, how do they keep people from getting rid of an older guy to go hire someone who's cheaper? That's what they do. It happens all the time. That's what unions kind of fight against. And I mean, I'm not like this huge pro-union guy, but I think there might be something to be said for having some unionization of like support staff members in athletics. Doesn't mean college, could be pros too, because I mean, work conditions they're not good sometimes. I mean, sometimes you are eating Ruth Chris steak, but a lot of times you're not.
There's regulation that obviously needs to be done because it is the wild, wild west. And nothing against the leadership from the top down, but some of it can be more of, you know, a little bit of mouth service, lip service on the, hey, look, we really believe in these things. And some places have been better than others, but there's no way to make it like a mandatory thing within team culture, within leagues or sports. I mean, unless a league mandates it and says across the board, this is how it needs to be handled, leagues have so much else that they're thinking about. They're not thinking as much about the wellness and of the individual employees as much. And
I mean, what it would take is like it almost would take a unified effort on a busy college football game day on Saturday in the middle of September, where everybody just walks out. You know, where everybody's just like, we're just not doing it today. You know, I mean, it would take a collective effort where the social media people are not posting anything, where the comms people are not facilitating interviews, not doing game notes, not meeting with TV, and you know, there's no stats for games, or there's no meals for games, or there's all the stuff that gets provided is just not there for one weekend. I don't know. I mean, it would almost have to be something drastic like that, where people just like, we're walking out one weekend. You know, Texas, Florida. Sorry, we're just not going to be there.
it won't happen.
It won't happen. No, I mean, it
won't, because
nothing will happen.
It won't happen because there's too many other people that are applying for our jobs.
Right.
And when you got 300, 400, 500 applications, unfortunately, and then getting everybody on the same page to just be like, yeah, I'm going to jeopardize my salary. Maybe there's a world that it can be done. And it's something like that can be done where everybody stands pat together. I think back to, I'm a wrestling fan, and, you know, Jesse Ventura is very outspoken about when he tried to unionize WWE wrestlers in the 80s. And, you know, the wrestling locker room is a very sacred place that, you know, that's the heart of the business right there. And they had a sort of like a wrestlers only meeting in the locker room. And he was explaining why the unionizing was important for the wrestlers to start getting better wages, but I don't even know if they were getting like medical or any of the other types of benefits at the time. And guess what happens? You got one person in there who stooged it out to Vince McMahon, a man by the name of, which I think he's admitted, Hulk Hogan, biggest star in the world. And guess what never happened?
Yep.
No union.
Yep.
And, that's a business that has made some improvements over the years compared to the 80s when it was just, horrible workplace environment. And you see guys that just a lot of horrible stories on health and wrestlers dying before they hit the age of 40. And, CTE stuff and all those types of things, not being taken care of after they retire and they can barely walk. It's heartbreaking. And I know they've made some advancements since then, but still it's the same thing in sports. You're just like, what's it going to be? How is this, if you want to call it revolution, going to happen?
Right.
And, I think conversations like this start to help. And I know a lot of those conversations have happened for years, but there's been nothing organized.
No.
And so I don't know. We have these.
It's not gonna. It's none of this is gonna happen. I mean, I will say this, Barca, and I have a story. Like I had a supervisor. This was like 2 weeks before the football season started. He was making no money. I mean, he was making. I don't even know what he was making. Not a lot. And he quit. He went to the AD. He was like, "Hey, I want a raise." The AD was like, "No." So he quit 2 weeks before football season started. Middle of football camp, he quits. So I remember going with my colleague at the time. We went up to Wendy's and had lunch. And I was like, do you want to quit too? And just leave them with just nobody here to do any of this stuff? And we sat and talked about it for a while. Like we seriously thought about, we weren't making any money either. And so we thought about, like, what if we just quit too? And like, there was just no one here to do any of these jobs that we were doing. And we didn't have the stones to do it, so we didn't do it. We kept working, but I mean, really, that's kind of what it's probably going to have to take. It's like people at high level places saying, we're just not going to do this. We're standing with the guys at these D2 schools and lower D1 schools and all that stuff. We're just sticking with them. We're going to be with them on this one Saturday in September. And I think until something like that happens, everything's going to keep going the way that it's going. Where people are just going to keep leaving the business, making no money, backfilling with really inexperienced people, which, they're going to do anything they can to get experience. And so that's where we are. So I don't even know why we bitch about it, Barca. I don't even care. I don't even work in that space anymore.
Yeah, I think when you've worked in it long enough, it's, for me at least, it's like you're defeated. You're just like, why even such a bad way to look at it? Just like, what will actually happen?
Yeah.
And then it becomes this, when you feel defeated by it and less passionate about it because that change won't come. It's almost like, not that they specifically want you to feel that way.
Right.
But, it's then your one less voice that's ramping things up. And, the way I've always seen it on my end is the older I've gotten, and the more important work-life balance has been is, even as a manager and, I have plenty of faults and, I drove our content teams to perform at a high level. There were high expectations, but also I knew if I wanted to completely regulate certain things, it was never going to get approved from top down. And just from the fact that anytime that, leadership needs something done, you got to do it. So again, it's a saying one thing, hey, let's give people time off. Let's give an extra day here. Sure. Let's do that. Let's do a free PTO day. Just for all, since we had 2 events last week or whatever the events are. And
right.
So definitely do a lot of that stuff, or take late mornings, or take a half day, or let's rotate this or that off. But the work doesn't stop. The requests still come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as that keeps happening, I just don't, it's important to, I guess that's where it comes down to. It's important finding the right place where you end up working. But the problem is you never really know a culture of a place until you've been there for a year.
Yeah.
You get through the honeymoon period of where everything's great, and you just don't know. And you also don't know how long certain people are going to be there up top. Things can change on a dime, and it's going to really take a full commitment to a lot of these things. And I hope it happens at some point, and dislike feeling like it can't. I do think there have been some small strides if I look back to when we probably first broke into the industry. Obviously inflation and stuff has helped salaries, but, I was making low 20s
Yep.
out of college. And I think back to some of my last jobs that people were starting at close to 50. From my end, being transparent, I wasn't making that number. Like, this is entry level now. I wasn't making that number until, I was more than 10 years in the business.
Yes.
How crazy is that?
Yeah. I never made over
And
that.
I've been promoted a couple times. And
Right.
so there's some small things. I think, when I look at like millennials and Gen Z, as I think they're fighting hard for some of this balance and, obviously the work from home stuff. And so there are some strides there, but it may just take that full generation. We may be looking at the next 20 years of, as they get into those spots and hopefully those things happen. And there's still the overlying thing of being a high performer in this industry means putting in a godly amount of hours and keeping it up to that pace, and just week in and week out through maybe 9 months of a year, a lot of times in pro sports, and around the clock for college sports, like 11 of the 12 months. I don't know, man. I love the work and love everything about it, but I can tell you the times that it's put me under, and there's not a support system and a way that's truly there to help people through it. And again, they're just an employer and they're giving me the paycheck, and some of that's on me to figure out on my own as a human being.
Yeah.
But that doesn't excuse the imbalance of work versus life and the mental toll and long-term toll that it takes on people, and creating more of a real culture.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's another edition of No Longer Credentialed. Thanks to all of you listening, and if you like it, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Next week on the pod, with the House settlement finalized in college sports, we'll go full heel and give our thoughts on how we would restructure a department. Don't forget to check us out on social media at NLC Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, keep grinding.
You're always looking for that fun out of office activity just to break up the day, especially if you've been in the office at 8 a.m. Say you have a 7 p.m. tip, basketball, and then I'm just like, man, I'm going to be here till 2 a.m. No joke. You're just like, hey, let's take a 2 p.m. walk over to McDonald's, go over to a couple blocks. Let's go Conan. Listen, people. When you go Conan with your staff, you don't just get one cone. Think about the joy that you have holding a cone. To me, when I'm holding an ice cream cone, now I'm older.
Joyful.
I get it in a bowl. They ask cone or bowl. But when you're holding a cone, you just feel like a kid again. You feel like you're reliving those days where you had no worries and no stress. And so for me, when I get that feeling, I think, this is great. How can I make it even better? You know what makes it even better? A second
Another
cone.
one.
And you know what I do with the second cone? I put it in my other hand. Then I'm like a little kid walking with 2 cones, one in each hand, and I'm just licking one, licking the other, back and forth, trying to make sure they both don't melt on the walk back.
Yeah.
And as we're walking back, both of them are gone probably by the time we cross the street from McDonald's. They don't make it back to the office because I don't want them to melt.
Yeah.
But the joy of holding 2 ice cream cones, there are not many joys in life that will make you feel better. The only one close to it is try holding a balloon on a string in each hand.
Yeah.